We're talking today with Mr. Joseph Hovinga of Wyoming, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Joe, can you start us off with some background on yourself? And to begin with, where and when were you born?
January 3rd, 1923.
Okay, and where was that?
And that was in,
Dorr?
No.
Or in a hospital in Grand Rapids, or?
Dorr, Michigan.
Dorr, Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay, and was that just a little farm town?
Yeah.
Okay, and what did your family do for a living when you were growing
My
up?
dad worked at Nash Calvinator and made refrigerators and stuff.
Okay, and where?
My mother stayed home to take care of it.
Okay, now where did Nash Calvinator have a factory?
Right down in Clyde Park Avenue.
Okay.
By Granville Avenue, right in that whole area there.
Okay. And then were you living in Dorr all that time?
Oh, no. We finally moved until we got close to the factory where he could just walk to work.
All right. Now, did he have regular work during the Depression?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the refrigerators, they have to go into a fire to heat that porcelain. And he was one of the guys that put them in this thing, and then he'd push a button and then back out, and he'd take them off there after they cooled a while.
Okay.
And when I got old enough after the service, I went down there.
Okay.
I worked in more. It was a lot different then, It was already made up. There's a big line there. You put them on the line, and
yeah. But during the 30s, though, the Depression was going on. And now, did he sometimes only work part of a week, or did he always have regular work?
No, he always worked because it was warm. It was awful hot there. Where he had to work, and people didn't want to do that.
Okay.
But he did it.
So he had an important enough job, and they needed him, so he had regular work. Okay. And how many kids were in the family?
There was 8 of us, but then 2 of them died. So.
All right. Now, where were you in that sequence? Are you oldest, youngest?
No, I'm about in the middle.
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
All right. And then where did you go to high school?
I started over on Division Avenue, where Sheriff Ford went.
Okay, South High.
South High, but it was too far to walk. I couldn't walk all the time again, So I more or less took papers home and done them at home and that kind of a deal.
And when did you leave high school?
When I got sick of it.
Yeah. So what year was that?
I don't know. It was quite a while ago.
Okay. Well, how long before Pearl Harbor was it, do you think? Because Pearl Harbor is December of 41.
Yeah.
So you were out of school before Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have a job at that point?
Yeah, I worked in Nash Calvinator too. With my dad worked on one side and I worked on the other side.
Okay.
And we make pretty good money.
Sure.
So.
Okay, so you're doing that. And now, do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Well, I guess it was all over the radio, and I don't think television was invented yet.
Not yet.
So, we heard about that kind of a deal.
Okay.
What do you do? You just have to go along with it, I guess.
Sure. Now, before Pearl Harbor happened, were you paying much attention to what was going on in the world?
Really. No,
okay.
No, because I'm far enough along. I don't need anybody else to keep me going. So, I'm one of these 17, 18-year-old guys that say, hey, I could do my own business.
Sure.
But I wish I stayed in school. I really do. But I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. So when this starts, then it is a pretty big surprise.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now after Pearl Harbor happens, did you think about going off and enlisting right away, or?
No, I was home for a while, and it got everybody else was going. My friends are all going away, and I better do something. So I enlisted.
Okay.
Went to Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's where he enlisted.
Okay. They swore you in there?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, did you go home, or did you go right off to training from there?
Well, we stayed in their barracks for a while.
Right.
And then it got so, they weren't paying me. I wasn't getting any pay, but I was still there. I was in the service. So I asked for some money, and they call it milk money, the piece of, and then Then I got that. Finally, I said, "Man, you better make sure I get a." I enlisted in the heavy weapons,
Mm-hmm.
the big guns that shoot.
Right.
Well, that's, and once you start you enlisted in those things, you can't get nothing but that. Well, they give me that. I went to. I ain't forgotten now where it is, but we were training there for a while, and then. They tell you, see, I drove semi, or a truck.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
With a gun behind it.
All right. Now, one of the big places for artillery training was Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma, that's another place I was at.
Okay.
This is over, it's by Florida. It's the other way of Florida.
Okay, in Georgia?
No.
Or Alabama?
No. Fort Sill.
Well, Fort Sill's in Oklahoma.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Yeah, I was in there.
You were there. Okay. Now, normally what would happen, now this is 1942 when this is happening, kind of middle, late in the year sometime?
Yeah.
Okay. You sign up. Normally you go to someplace for basic training first.
Right.
Where you just learn to march and that kind of thing. Where did you go for that? Was that the place that was in the south, or?
Well, this is the first place I went to was this place where by the big guns,
Okay.
And we were shooting those big guns, man. Look out! You got to open your mouth, or you're blow your ears off. So.
Okay, but you were getting. Did you get any of the regular basic training stuff, the learning to march and the follow orders and that kind of thing?
Yeah, when we weren't with the guns, then we'd be out there marching and back and forth. And
Okay.
well, I went to town one time with a guy, and he got drunk, and I said, "You better stay here." And, well, I can't stay here alone. So I stayed with him, and next day they said, "All right, you're going."
Okay.
And they shipped me out with him.
All right.
I don't know if he got drunk after that or not, but we went
Okay.
to California, Fort Ord, California. Well, before that, when first we went to Pennsylvania, it's
Well, it was Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania was one place where they did a lot of training.
Fort Ord. We wound up in Fort Ord, California,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a place in between.
Well, when were you in Fort Sill?
Fort Sill, Oklahoma. That's it.
There you go. Not
There you
Pennsylvania, Oklahoma.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Okay. And did you do more artillery training there?
Oh yeah. We did some. That's another jumping off stage. I think it was. See, we done a lot of walking and training and that kind of stuff. But for the big guns, you got they got too many of those to put around. So we trained quite a bit on those. Then I got in a fight with a guy, and oh man, we got blood all over us, and he was drunk. And I come home from town, and I don't even have a bed. They took my bed, my sheets, everything. Took them down, put them away. Oh, you get home from a pass like that, and you don't have a bed. Now what? What do you do now? And I took the guy next to me. I know he kind of did it, but I picked him up, bed and all, and threw him on the floor. And they all laughed. I mean, they were putting a joke on me.
Right.
But to me, it was no joke. I had no place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, they helped me put up a bed, put another mattress on there, and got sheets and stuff. But then I had a fight with him. But the next day, we had a terrible fight. And they said, "Here comes the guard. The guard's coming." So then we quit for a while. The guard go by, and then we start in again. But after that, we were best of buddies.
Mm-hmm.
After that deal.
All right. Now, did you finish the training course with that same group of guys?
With the same bunch of, yeah.
Okay, so they didn't kick you out again?
No.
They just took your bed away once?
Yeah, then we went to Fort Ord, California.
Okay, now when they're moving you all across the country here, how do you get from one place to another?
Well,
Were you on trains?
Cars and trucks. Trucks mostly.
Okay, so did you go from Oklahoma to California?
I had a train.
A train there, okay.
And what happened, these girls are sitting at a truck at a stop, at these flashing light things. So we threw our address out. Sure enough, I get a letter from some girl with her name and everything. I didn't know who she was, you know. I never did answer it, but
Well, that was pretty good.
yeah,
Got that to work.
they're all standing there waving, you know. But no, then I got Fort Ord in California. That's where I took most of my training.
Okay.
You know, heavy weapons.
Okay. Now, what specific weapons did you train on?
On a mortar.
Okay. Because you've been working.
81 millimeter mortar.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big sucker.
Okay.
And I carried that tube all the time too.
And how heavy is the mortar tube?
I don't know. Pretty heavy. Anyhow, we said when after the war, we were taking home, plant in the backyard, and pee all over it.
There you go.
Because we had to clean it every day.
Did somebody have to carry? Did someone have to carry the base plate too?
Oh yeah.
Now, was the base plate heavier than the tube?
Oh, you're all the one to say.
Okay. So it's like 60 pounds or something.
Oh
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I carried the tube, and another guy had the base plate, and another guy had the tripod.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he hit the down with it, I'm there with it. You've got to get in and turn it, so it won't come back out.
Right.
And the base plates come down, and part of it goes in that. Then you go from there. Yeah.
Now, did you also train with larger artillery pieces? You know, the howitzers.
Before that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in Pennsylvania when I had the big guns.
Okay.
But I sure didn't like them. Man, you had to open your mouth so wide that you couldn't hardly do it because it'd blow your ears right off.
Okay. But an 81 millimeter mortar is a lot smaller than a 105 howitzer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes an awful noise.
Okay.
All
right.
all that stuff that goes out with it, you know.
Now, when you were at Fort Ord, were you assigned to an actual unit yet, or were you just training?
Just training. You know,
right.
a lot of training.
Okay. So, and about how long do you think you spent in Fort Ord?
Oh, a year.
Okay. So basically.
About a year.
Okay. So sometime into 43.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, while you were at Fort Ord, could you get passes or go off the base regularly?
Oh, we'd pass it every year. It depends on what you want to do, you know. Any gang you hung around with.
Okay. And where was there to go? I mean, was there a town nearby that people went to a lot?
Fort Ord. No, there was, I don't know if it's a town or city or whatever you call it. But it wasn't very big.
Okay.
Little tiny things, you know. We would get a bus and ride the bus down there.
Okay.
We got paid every month.
Mm-hmm.
$21. That's a lot of money.
All right. Now, would they go like to, I don't know, Sacramento or Fresno or someplace like that, or into San Francisco, or?
No, this is see, Fort Ord, California's before you get to the main part of California.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, there was a lot of places you could go and everything, but they were nice places
Yeah.
and stuff.
But mostly just sort of farming areas and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're there that time, and what do you remember anything about the people who were training you? How they treated you, or anything else like that?
Well, we went to the firing line quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Fired guns. We used to have a lot of fun with that. This guy stick up that old sign, you know. This is where you hit it. Bang! We hit this one. You know. And we knew they were going to stick it up there wherever we hit, you know.
Right.
And we'd watch for that dude. Then
Okay.
they'd holler, "Cut it out, Joe!" or something over the radio.
Right.
Over back, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. It was after a while. It was. I kind of liked it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I was with a bunch of guys my own age and all that.
Yeah. Okay. And while this is going on, were you following the news from the war so you knew what was happening, or were you just minding your own business?
Minding my own business.
Okay.
I didn't know what was going on. You know, I know we were in the war, but then we wound up in California, Fort Ord, California.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I took my training with that.
Right.
With them.
That's the mortars, right?
Mortars.
Okay. Now, where did you go after Fort Ord? What's next?
Then we started Then we went to Hawaii, or
Went to Alaska, right?
Alaska.
Okay.
We took Attu in Alaska
Okay. Now, how did you get up to Alaska?
in a boat.
Okay. Now,
Oh, yeah.
what kind of boat was it? Was it a big troop transport?
Big,
or?
yeah, big one.
Okay.
They give us long underwear and all that stuff. It's cold.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, now what? We get down there, it's nice and warm in Alaska. Oh man, it was terrible. So we give those back and got a clean uniform, just regular uniform.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, did your unit take part in the fighting on Attu?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. So what do you remember about that campaign? I mean, did you just sit on the boat for a while and wait for something to happen, or did you land right away?
No, we landed.
Okay. And,
we landed and we had to look over the situation and
when you landed, how did you get ashore? Were you in landing craft, or?
yeah, it's just like the other one, you don't need this. There wasn't supposed to be any Japs on there, but there was.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So anyhow, there was Japs, when we got there, it's cloudy, Well, here come the Japs. Where'd they come from? There was no Japs around. They followed it down the mountain with the clouds.
Okay.
We found that out later. And then we started watching that. And when the clouds started coming down, we started shooting in the clouds. Sure enough, when they went back up, there's 4 or 5 of them laying there.
Okay. So you just saw a small number of Japanese. It wasn't a really big attack or something.
No. I don't know how many they had up there, but we killed quite a few of them.
Okay. Now, did you get to use your mortar that day when you landed? Or?
No.
Okay.
We just had our rifles.
Okay.
No, mortars weren't coming in there yet. We didn't have any mortars yet. We just more or less train, always trading.
Okay. Now, at this point, by the time you go to Alaska, you're part of a unit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what unit were you in?
37th Infantry, same one.
Okay. And so 7th Division.
Yeah.
And then there's a 32nd or 37th?
32nd.
32nd Regiment. And what company?
Company H.
Okay. Now, was that a weapons company or just a rifle company?
It was just a rifle company, I guess.
Now, were you part of the mortar section for that?
Yeah.
But at the time, you're not bringing the mortars, so now you're just a rifleman.
No, we didn't have the mortars in, we just had our rifles.
Right. Okay.
But later on, we got the mortars. And then them suckers, they're not light,
Right. Now, but while you're on Attu, because we're at that part of your story right now, how long did the fighting last, do you think?
Oh, I would say it lasted probably a month, maybe not quite that long.
Okay.
But, you get to Alaska, and it's daylight out. 12 o'clock at night is day. So we had to, after we got it all done, kicked all the Japs off and all that, they give us a time. Now, I worked the second shift, but you get at night, you're daytime. You don't know if it's daytime or nighttime.
So it doesn't matter what shift you're on.
No, it don't matter. So that's the only way we keep it, and go to sleep. You have to put the shades down because it's sunshine all the time.
All right. Now, did you see any Japanese soldiers, alive or dead, other than at the distance?
A lot of dead ones. They were. After we got in there, really laid it to them and killed a lot of them. I heard there's a submarine come up to the island at night. It took a lot of them away. That's good. We killed so many of them that they're just laying all over. We had to get this truck, pick them up, throw them in a big trench. They start smelling pretty soon.
Yeah. All right. So that's sort of your first exposure to real war at that point.
Oh, yeah.
People get killed.
Yeah,
Did your own company take many casualties?
Not really, no. No, see, no, they didn't. Not at that time.
Right.
We were well, we were more or less, we're still young kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it wasn't bad for us, but it wasn't fun either, you know.
Yeah.
But you're at a war, you could get killed, you know. So then after we kicked those Japs off there, they were making roads.
Mm-hmm.
So we took over their equipment to make the roads.
Okay, so you were using Japanese equipment to make the roads. Okay.
Then after that, I don't know what happened. After
right.
we got out of there. Then we went from there. We went to Wine, Winter, and the Songs. You know,
Yep.
where's that?
You went to Hawaii.
Hawaii, yeah.
All right. And then where were you based in Hawaii?
Schofield Barracks,
Okay.
right next to it. See, they made their own barracks
Mm-hmm.
for us. And then when my wife and I got married, we went there on the 25th anniversary, and the barracks were gone.
Right.
So they were just temporary.
Sure.
I went over there, turned the water on, water comes shooting out of there, you know. So they don't freeze there.
Mm-hmm.
They just leave it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now-
that was something else.
Now, did you spend a long time in Hawaii?
Yeah. Yeah, we take an island and we come back
Okay.
to Hawaii.
Now, while you're on Hawaii, now, was it really Wine, Women, and Song? I mean, was it a nice place to be?
Oh, sure it was. Beautiful spot, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, we saw a lot of planes coming over and stuff. We didn't know if they were going to bomb us or what, but it was mostly our
Yeah.
own. You know.
At that point, probably pretty much all our own.
Yeah, yeah.
Pearl Harbor was a while ago. Okay. Now, would you go into Honolulu regularly?
Oh, I went to a few times in Honolulu. Yeah, I was surprised they had a McDonald's restaurant in downtown. McDonald's, big old sign, McDonald's.
Well, it wasn't going to be the McDonald's, because the famous McDonald's is the chain that starts in the 50s, but it was still a restaurant called McDonald's.
You call them McDonald's, yeah.
There you go.
Maybe he bought it out.
Who knows? That's what's there. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, did some of the guys on the base, would they go into town and get drunk and get into trouble?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Okay. You didn't do that, though.
Oh, no. I didn't drink. I really
Okay.
didn't.
Okay.
I think I had 5 beers for the whole shebang all the way around. It's about, I didn't like beer. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, probably a healthy thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and were they telling you? Okay, so you said you would be in Hawaii, and then you go off and capture an island.
We had to do a lot of training,
Okay.
and I was pretty husky, like a kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they put me up on these platforms, and who's that? Scott. They put me on these platforms. Oh man. See, there's something like that. They put me on those platforms, and I'd have to train these other kids. Well, this one time, there's a deal. You have to stick like a broomstick. Stick it over this shoulder and come back and pull it. Then if they had enough, they clap their hands, you know. Well, there's one guy, I'll break your stick. You know, I fixed his wagon, but he did break it.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. That stick, and I put it on pretty hard, and I broke that stick. I couldn't believe it. I shook his hand. I said, "You have got a hard neck, you know."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did. But we did a lot of. We were all fenced in,
Mm-hmm.
and we had dirty pictures hanging around there from Japanese and stuff like that, and just to get you in the mood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we went swimming there a few times. They had to learn how to swim. Then they'd get up on this big thing they built, a rope ladder. You climb up the rope, get up to the top, and then out there, woo, you know, way down, push them off.
Okay. Now, did you do any practicing to get into landing craft, or had that?
Oh yeah, every time we had to move somewhere else, we'd go another boat up the rope ladder. Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, you said so after, so you're in Hawaii for a while and you're training and just kind of getting ready and staying in shape, and then they load you up and they send you to the Marshall Islands next, is that right?
Marshall Island is the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, do you remember anything about the trip over there?
The Marshall Islands?
Yeah.
It was so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall Island, there wasn't hardly nothing there.
Okay.
And we took it right away. And there's a sniper, we got him. And we could hear those bullets go shoom, shoom, around it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where is this? So we had to look at it. Sure enough, there he is. So we shot him.
Okay.
And
Now,
he didn't come down.
was he in a tree or?
Yeah, he's up in the tree. He didn't come down. So we had a BAR, like a machine gun.
Browning automatic rifle, yeah.
We shot the tree down.
Yeah, that'll work.
Down he come, and sure, he's all big old leather belt wrapped around.
He's strapped into the tree, yeah.
So he couldn't come down if he wanted to. He's dead, but he.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought him down. Okay. Now, did your company take any casualties there, or?
Not really, no,
Okay.
no.
So it hasn't been too bad a war so far.
Not so far,
Okay.
No, and it was rough. We didn't know what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
But
All right.
it was bad for a while. Sometimes they start shooting at you. When they start shooting at you, then you gotta look out. But they had these. I don't know who invented this flare. A trip flare, they call it. They trip it with their feet, goes up to the the whole thing up to like daytime. There's a jet, and they're gone. They're gone. Cause we had our guns right with us, and we just hear that old flare going, and we get up there and look around, and we see a jet boy. He's dead. Cause we all shoot him.
All right. Now, how long do you think you actually stayed on shore there in the Marshalls?
Oh, a month or so, 2
Okay.
months.
All right.
It's
And
more training all the time, different stuff, and yeah, it was. To me, I'm a young kid, man. I was having a good time.
all right. And once the Japanese were taken care of, I mean, what could you do for entertainment? I mean, do they have movies or games
Good town. You could get fast, go in the town.
in the Marshall Islands?
No.
Back in Hawaii.
No, there wasn't nothing there.
Yeah,
It was just a little island, really.
Right.
We
Yeah.
just
You just kind of sit around.
sit down, play cards or whatever.
Right. Okay. Now, from the Marshalls, do you go back to Hawaii again?
Yeah, we went back to Hawaii
Okay.
and more training,
Okay. Now, do you think the training was just to keep you guys busy?
just to keep us going. Because, you sit down so long, you just get so stiff.
Sure.
Can't do nothing.
Oh, yeah, you get out of shape.
Oh, you better believe it.
That kind of thing. Okay. So now, eventually, though, they get you organized and you're going to go off someplace else. Where do you go next?
Well,
that
that was the Marshall Islands. I think it was close to Japan.
Well, didn't you go to the Philippines next?
Philippines. I never the Philippines, yep.
Okay.
And that was something else too, I mean, they were already fighting on there.
Mm-hmm.
And we took one side and somebody else took the other side. And those Philippines people, they do anything you want. Japanese tell them to walk, you walk. Give me your fingernail, pull your fingernails right. And pull your fingernails right out of you. I saw some girls that had fingernails, they pulled her gone. She ain't nothing there. And this one lady that was taking care of us, her folks were there. And she said that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had that big march. Well, that was after I was already gone then.
Well, there was the original Death March, but that was at the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
That was the American Filipino prisoners who were captured back in '42.
We saw where that was.
Okay, so then you got up onto Luzon then, because that's the big island.
Yeah, it's a big island, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you're in the Philippines now, does your company see more combat than it had before?
No, we saw so much, we were more or less lay back. We'd lay back. If they needed more help, man, they'd shoot us up there right away. And we had our child guy, he had his own truck,
Mm-hmm.
He had all of the cans on there, Everything was nice and hot, so we had some good meals, but not much of them, but it was good.
So there were times when you were kind of staying in one place for a while, and they could set up the support for you.
They set up that Kwajalein and all that.
Okay. Now, when they sent you into the Philippines, did they do anything to protect you against malaria, that kind of thing? Did you get pills to
Probably
take?
gave us a shot. Oh yeah, they did give us a shot. Then we had to go outside and play volleyball. You know, you get to move it, stop moving around. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Well, that's probably to control infections, it's the gamma globulin or something like that. Because with malaria, they had a pill called Attu. It was like a yellow pill or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Okay.
They give us a bunch of pills. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but this one, after we got the doctor gave us a shot, we had to go out and play volleyball. Oh man. I couldn't like to play volleyball, you know.
Okay.
We were having a good time. We were young shots, and like this guy here, even younger than him, I think it was.
Well, probably. You're all pretty young at that point. Okay. Do you have now? Do you remember being on more than one island in the Philippines? Because Leyte is the first one we go to in late 1944.
Yeah, that's the first one we had. We lived with Leyte.
Yeah.
After we got the and then we hit Leyte.
Yeah.
And then from there we went to.
Well, Luzon is the big island, and that's where the Death March was. So.
We didn't hit that.
Okay.
We went to, what happened? Now we went to a movie one night. They had an open air theater. You know, we'd go there and sit there and watch the movie. Yeah. They stopped it. Japan surrendered.
Okay.
What? Boy, I mean, we all went back to our barracks. You know, we got our guns and bow, 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 bow.
By that time, you were on Okinawa, though, right?
Yeah, we're on Okinawa then.
Okay. So we're just trying to follow here as best you can. I'm going to go and check up on the 7th Division records and confirm a little bit of this. But you were in the Philippines, and so basically, so far, you're really not getting into a whole lot of significant combat. You're in reserve or supporting other people.
We were supporting a lot of people, but those Japs, they move at night. Mm-hmm. And if you don't watch it, man, they'll got you.
Okay.
That's why we had these trip flares and all that. You know, and I almost shot some of our own men. I was on guard duty that time, and this flare went off. And I'm looking over there, there's 4 or 5 Japs standing there. I started shooting. Well, our men were over in that area too, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just shot at the Japs and got them. And then one guy got away. The Jap got away, and he got into one of the guys. We call them fart sacks. You know,
Sleeping bags, yeah.
Sleeping bag, yeah. He just rattled that guy all to pieces with a knife. He just cut them all up. But that's the only one that got through.
Okay.
How he got through, I don't know. Maybe he got around that flare when it come up.
Okay. All right. So now, do you remember anything else in particular about the time you were spending in the Philippines? Other things that happened or stuff you saw there?
No, not really, no.
Okay.
Everything happened so fast, you know, we moved because we were just more like extras, helping out. More and more. And it was, of course, we were running into some pretty bad ones, too. Yeah, I remember us walking across from one place to another place, and man, you could hear the little bullets just whistle right over top of your head. Now, somebody's shooting somewhere. Mm-hmm. But then we get to a place, and then we all get down, and he told us, set up, and you set up your gun and everything, but you don't stay there until you have to.
Okay. Now, in the Philippines, did you get many occasions to actually fire the mortar?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, on the back end of a shell, there's ammunition, or powder. It's in a plastic form. You know, when it hits down in there, it sets that plastic powder off, and whew, that's when it takes off. And it depends on how far you want it to go. Mm-hmm. First thing they ask for a smoke shell. It lands in the smoke going all over you. You know about where you're at.
Right.
And then from then on, it's either rapid fire or send me 3, 4 more. Or,
Okay. Now, how are you communicating with the people telling you to
well, they weren't too far away.
targets? Okay. So you don't need a radio for that or anything that?
They have good front lines.
Okay.
They're on the radio. They got a radio, and then they're back talking to somebody by us.
Mm-hmm.
The gunner, he's got his earphones on,
Right.
and he could hear them, but we can't. But he tells us what to do.
Right, so they can correct fire and they can call that in. You make the adjustments,
direct fire,
and then fire for effect. And
I've had direct fires, and I've been putting them in there so fast that I'm hitting the ones coming out.
mm-hmm.
You go ding, you go ding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, could the tubes overheat? Could you use a mortar too much, or was that strong enough? That was okay.
That would overheat.
All right.
A big thick piece of metal, you know.
Right. Because rifles could overheat, and sometimes artillery
I
tubes
know.
did. So yeah. Okay.
No.
All right. So you were actually getting into a fair amount of action at times when you were.
Yeah, that was pretty bad there for a while. But then we got all the Jats were killed. They're all gone. Either they took off and went home, or they're gone.
Okay. Now, did you wind up having to kind of pursue them and go inland? And,
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you move around? Did you have to walk, or were you in trucks, or?
We walked with people behind us and people in front of us and side of us.
But you had to carry the mortar too.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sucker wouldn't stay at Sill, He didn't have legs on it.
Right.
I had to carry him, of course, and I had a pistol with me at all times.
Okay. Now, how many men were in the mortar crew?
Well, there's one. You get your man up in front. Get your line up.
Mm-hmm.
That's one, and then me, 2. And then you had a ammunition carrier.
Mm-hmm.
You had 2 of those,
Okay.
and they were back for it.
Right.
They were getting their ammunition off their backs and opening them up and giving them to me. And,
Right.
and he told me how much powder to leave on there, and I'd take so much off and tell him the rest.
Right.
And
So it's about 5 of you or so for the.
well, let's see, there 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5. Sometimes there were 6. It depends on how many men we had in our squad.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Now, did men get sick very often, or hurt in marching, or things like that?
No.
Okay. So you got and pretty much the same guys the whole time.
Oh, we were all together.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, eventually, when you finished up in the Philippines, did you go straight to Okinawa from there, or someplace else first?
Right straight to Okinawa.
Okay. Now, when you got to Okinawa, was there still fighting going on there?
Sure.
Now, were you part of the invasion at the beginning?
Well, I wasn't part of the invasion. We got there when they were already invaded them.
Right.
But these Japs, they wouldn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
So these caves, they're in a cave, and we shoot some flares and gas and all that stuff in there, and then you can hear them hollering, crying, but they won't give up.
Mm-hmm.
So we got an interpreter. What are they saying? They want to get out, but they won't come out. So, all right. So I went over and got a BAR. I started shooting in there with a BAR, like a machine gun.
Mm-hmm.
And they still won't come out. So I said, this guy was a flamethrower. I just shoot some fire in there. He got right close by, and he just let it go, man. It's just a big shoot of fire like that.
Yeah.
Man, and then they come out with their pants on fire and all that other stuff. Oh, man. And they didn't last too long. They just, half of them died.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't, but.
All right.
And it was, after it was more or less cleanup time, we were cleaning up.
Now, would some people surrender voluntarily that you saw?
We tried. Now here's the deal on that. There's a road there, and they had, I'd say about 20 people walking down that road. Well, my captain, he said, Joe, get a couple guys and stop them. So we went over there, and I'm holding them. You can't talk to them. They don't understand you. And then They all men that got their hands up there on to give up. Well, one stupid guy over there, he took his hand down or something, and we start shooting. Well, we got 5 or 6 of them. Civilians. I don't know, I guess they were civilians.
Yeah. Well, there were civilians there. Well, they're all men, or
No, there's some women
yeah.
too, but you know, they got fingers too, and they could shoot.
yeah.
So,
Did you hear stories about women or children carrying grenades or things like that, or anything?
no, no. No, what we done, after we got that bunch went through, you know, we got people over there to take care of all these people that were either dead or pretty well wounded.
Right.
And then the next day, we had it again. And we were going to shoot them all this time. We're not going to leave any there. But there's only a few of them come through. Then they got their hands up, no guns, no nothing. You know, how do we know what they got underneath their arms and stuff? So we got to make sure, so we shoot by their feet. And then they go like this, you know. And then they kept on saying about this, there's a place over here, like a big tunnel. Oh, well, what we got in there? So 2 or 3 of us went over there and looked, and sure enough, there's a big old hole right up coral, and that's chopped to sharp. And this guy, this young whippersnapper, was up there with his. He didn't have a gun, but he had a sword. And then when I got that sucker down, I took that sword away from him. That's mine now, you know. He had a flag too, and I gave the flag to somebody else. First we wiped our hands on it, and then we gave it to them. Yeah. And we done a lot of cleanup. That's what they call cleanup. And but you gotta watch out too. You know, they're those cotton making jabs. I like that one Japanese. It was a doctor. Well, we said, well, he speaks English just like we did. Oh, what you doing in the Japanese army? Well, he got his training, and he went home, and now they won't let him go. So he said, no, he's in his army. But he gave up right away. He didn't want nothing to do with it.
Okay, and he could talk to you.
Oh, yeah, we could talk to that guy. You know, all it is blah, 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 blah. We know what it is. Yeah, and then shortly after that, it all ended out. And I was one of the first ones to go home because I had a lot of points.
Right.
They won points at that time, I guess.
But you were still there in August when the Japanese surrendered.
Oh, yeah.
So you heard that, and then not too long after that.
Not too long after that. You know, I heard that on one of those islands that they went at night and took them off there with a submarine. Went over there and picked them up.
Yeah, well, they may have done. They did something like that for Kiska because the Japanese left that before we landed there.
Yeah, and Kiska too. Yeah, I think they did. Yeah.
Okay, so now there's most of the fighting in Okinawa is over by about June or so. So you got about a month or so on the island when there's not too much happening, or was there still cleanup work to do until you left?
There's still cleanup work to do.
Okay.
Yeah, we had, you know, we take the island and then there's no more fighting. You know. They were building roads. We took over their equipment and started building roads.
Now, did you do that? You mentioned that when you were talking about Attu.
Yeah.
And were they doing that also
all
in Okinawa?
They're all trying to build different roads, you know, all the time. Yeah. And we would take over their equipment because it wasn't much good, but.
Yeah. Well, I think Okinawa would have had more American equipment available than Attu did.
Right.
Okay. All right. So now. So you basically get to go home. Now, were there other guys in your unit who left with you?
Yeah, they come back with me, but they didn't have enough points to come back.
Okay.
And then I heard my outfit went to Korea or someplace. And where'd it go?
Yeah.
I went to Korea, and boy, hey, I'm glad went home. You know, I had enough points to go home.
Right. Now, yeah.
But we were the way it got when the war ended, right then. We were watching that movie, and the war ended. Oh boy! And then we come back and we start shooting their guns off the place, and now what do we do? You know, I'm not going to go nowhere. I'm home. I had enough points to go home. I was figuring out all the points and everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough points to go home, so I just said, no, I'm going home. And they put us aside. 5 or 6 of us had enough points. And we got on a ship, and then we went back to Fort Ord, California.
All right. Now, did the ship stop anywhere on the way home?
No,
Straight to California?
Straight on through.
So would you land at San Francisco then?
San Francisco, California, Fort Ord, yeah.
All right. Now, did they discharge you at Fort Ord, or did
No,
they send you back?
They had to be discharged in
Chicago, or?
no, right here, just the other side of the lake.
Okay. I can't. Let's see. Some people went. Oh, okay. So Fort Sheridan, which is outside of Chicago.
No, it was Fort Sheridan. It was Fort something.
Well, there's Fort McCoy, which was Wisconsin.
Camp McCoy.
That was a big place for that.
Yeah, and they said so they sent me there.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, we haven't got your papers. So I said, well, no, now why? Stick around here. You want to go home? Yeah. So I went home. I got on a train in Costner, not on a train. I come home, shoot the breeze with my brother and everybody, and about a week or so later, I went back and got my papers, and I was all done.
All right. Now, once you got back home and you're discharged, did you just go back to work again at your old job?
Oh, no, I hung around for a while, but then that lady pissed me off on a bus there. I kicked her butt off. And everybody, the guys all clapped too, and I did it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, her son was still over there. See, I was there and I'm back already. Of course, we had a more or less of a cleanup job, but those cleanup jobs are those Japs. They're smart. They're not dumb. They know what they're doing. They hide in the corner with something over top of them. You don't even know they're there. Boom, you're gone.
Right. Now, so we had gotten back, and you're back home, and you're going to wrap this now. Were there any consequences of throwing the woman off the bus, or did that?
Oh, no. They kind of clapped her hand. Yeah, give it to her, stuff like that.
All right.
No, I didn't hear nothing about it after we took off. I had to take off, that bus driver.
All right.
So he took off. We went downtown.
Okay. But now, did you? So you spent a while without working, and then?
Yeah, I messed around a while. Then.
Well, was the government giving you money?
Oh, yeah.
There's something called the 5220 Club, or whatever.
Yeah,
So
they were you got so much a week,
Mm-hmm.
And then this friend of mine, I said, well, let's go out tonight, So we went to the roller skating rink, the Coliseum downtown.
Mm-hmm. That's
where I met my wife. Yeah, that was a good place.
Mm-hmm.
And she skied quite a bit, and it was nice. When I brought her home, homemakers. She lived in homemakers. I didn't know what homemakers was. Never heard of it. I said, well, I'll be back in about half an hour. Shit, I was back in 10 minutes, man. You press the car and go.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that stuff. I don't know where homemakers. I've never been to homemakers in my life. Now we know where it's at and everything. But
all right. Now, did you go back to work for Kelvinator, or did you? Okay.
Yeah, I worked for Kelvinator. First, I had to go to the union.
Okay.
They had a union there, and they said, "Yep, we got a place for you." So I went back and I worked in the same place my dad did, but he was gone by then. And I didn't want to do what he did, but I wound up on a hotline with asbestos gloves on,
Okay.
and taking his hot hooks off there. That's just as bad as where he was. They didn't have that built when he was there, and he put them all on the platforms. Then he'd run these platforms in these hot ovens. Then he'd so much time he'd run them back out. And they'd cool down, and he'd pick them up, put them on a line.
Okay.
But I had to do that all the time.
Okay.
But then we had 4 of us guys, because sometimes we run the stoves, and we had to have two people. Well, when they didn't have it with stoves, they just had this other stuff. Hey, man, yeah, every so often I had to go to work. 15 minutes out of the hour, you know. Hey, man, I had it made.
Okay. Now, how long did you stay with them?
Calvin in here?
Yeah.
I was there for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah, and then was it you, was it? No, my brother John. My brother John, he worked for AMP. And he said, come on over here, we got a good job. So I went over there. I went to work for AMP. I was driving semi. You know? And I kind of liked it. But after, you know, when there's, it comes along, those guys that want to go on vacation, you got to take their place.
He was injured in this war, you know that, right? He kind of skipped.
That's actually, yeah, tell us, how did you get your Purple Heart?
Oh, when this guy got killed, like I'm talking to you, we had a fire
Okay.
going, and him and I were talking together, standing up side by side, and boom, it took off, man, and he fell down right away, and I'm bleeding like mad, and they got a hold of me and put me in this, it's called LST. They use it as a hospital shift.
Right.
And they put me in bed there and they cleaned me up pretty good. And he said, well, you're not too bad. He said, oh, maybe we're going to lose you too. But they cleaned me up pretty good. And he said it went in here and it followed my skull across. And, you know, and then it went out.
Okay.
Shrapnel.
Where was this?
That was on
The Philippines or Okinawa?
I think it was Okinawa.
Okay, yeah, 'cause they would have had LSTs there as hospital ships. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now, do you know if that was that a mortar round that hit you, or?
Oh, it must have been.
Yeah.
Because it's shrapnel.
Right.
You know, and when that hits, it just, everything goes every way.
And then, how long were you on the hospital ship?
Well, I was there for, I think about a month.
Okay.
And then they didn't have a uniform for me to go back. So they give me their Navy uniform.
Okay.
Oh, boy. I come back with that Navy uniform on. The guy said, where you been? You got a Navy uniform on? Well, I had it on for 2 days and then I got my regular uniform.
God, better than the fatigues.
Yeah, that was nice. It was, you know, at that time, the age I was in, it was just, it wasn't really a war that I was in, but it was dangerous, of course, you know. But we done a lot of cleanup.
Right. Okay. Now, to look back on the whole thing, how do you think your time in the service affected you, or what did you take out of all of it?
You know, I got pretty smart after that, you know. You learn fast. By not going to school for what I did, you know, I learned pretty good afterwards. All that other stuff that I went, yeah, you learn fast. If something happens like that, you learn.
Okay.
And you know, sounded like that woman getting on that bus. Oh man, they were all clapping on that. All those people.
Now, was she mouthing off, or?
Yeah, she did. I want that seat. My boy's over there in service, and you're here. How come you're not over there?
Okay. So she thought you never went anywhere.
Yeah, I got up and I said, look at here, lady. I just got back from down there. I said, get off that stupid bus. You know, he wandered around. Told the driver to stop the bus, and he did. And I pushed her off and shut the door, and away we went. I don't know whatever happened to her after that, but
All right.
she was something else.
Okay.
They were all laughing about it, you know.
He used to, who was it that you used to feed? Oh, it was a little kid.
Huh?
The little kid that you used to feed.
Oh, that was in the army.
Where were you?
In one of the islands.
So he was from that country, right? He was,
I
and he
don't
was
know.
starving, you said.
Oh, yeah, those kids were starving.
Now,
yeah.
would that be in the Philippines or in Okinawa?
I think it was Okinawa
Yeah.
or Philippines, one of those. But we, you know, the war was more or less over, and we had fresh rations. We'd stand in line, get our Well, I stood in line and I got this young kid over, just a young spart, you know. I said, hey, come here. He come over by me, he hugged my knee and my leg and all. I said, stand right here, walk with me, help me. Okay, you know, he didn't say okay, he didn't know what he was talking about, I guess. So I got more than I needed in mine, and we went and sat down on a grass or log or whatever it was there, and I give him some in a can that he had. He had just a can, and you know, he really loved that stuff. Oh, yeah, and then you know he'd always be bowing to me. You know.
Yep, that's probably Okinawa.
They do a lot of bowing. Yep. And then those guys said, tell him, oh my aching back. So I said, when you bow like that, say, oh my aching back. So he did. Oh my aching back. Everybody laughed. It was funny at the time, but probably not to him. He didn't know what he was doing there.
Yeah, but I mean, you had orphans and you had kids who didn't know where their families were, or the families couldn't feed them, and they were just trying to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you left out?
That's what he was
Oh
doing.
my gosh, there's so much.
He was just surviving, you know.
What about the lady with the hole in her leg, with the maggots?
Well, yeah, you know, that's when we were policing up and we're watching everybody that was coming by, you know. And this bunch of women come by one time and she was on the stretcher. So we stopped them, looked at her. She pulled the blankets back, and there's a big old hole in her leg. They had maggots and full of. So I had it on my belt. We all had them on our belt. They got my stuff. And they took it out, and then they poured it on her and killed all the maggots.
Yeah.
Then they took her, kept her this way, shook her, get those maggots out of her.
Yeah.
And then we patched her up. We put a bandage across it. I don't know whatever happened to her after that, but. If she lost that leg or if she'd all come back, I don't know. But it could have come back because it was just eating her up. I could see her bones. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was terrible. I mean, I felt
Some of
sorry for
them,
the
if
girl.
you wanted to take that, you can take that and.
Well, I've got that.
Oh, you've got that already. Okay, 'cause like there might, if he's leaving stuff out, it could be on there. I don't know. It could be just little pieces that are left.
Well, I think actually you've done a pretty good job here today, and our tape is just about up.
Yeah, now comes the money, see now.
Well, good luck on that one.
Yeah.
All right, been at it for a while and not getting paid yet. But okay, well, I'd just like to close out here by thanking you very much for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, you know, I'm 92 years old, and I can't do anything anymore. Not really, you know. I'm living, but
You're living, hey, but you can tell the story. Thank you very much.
one for her, I don't know.